you want to move closer and closer and closer to the point of your arrow. The point of your arrow is your unique gifts, your unique ability, your passion, your zone of genius, where you feel time goes fast and you feel like the outcomes go exactly as you want, and you feel energized and you feel excited and you feel passionate.
We're very excited to have Hannah on. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you so much, Brad. Excited to be here.
So Hannah is she's an entrepreneur, an incredible entrepreneur, because I was a guest on her show, and she's the founder and CEO of HB Capital and the firm RE, and host of the Hannah Hammond Show, which is where you had me in, and we were just speaking offline. As I follow you, Hannah, I don't know how you do it because you seem to be living in a hotel on the road all the time. So.
Yeah. I think that's one of my gifts and passions in life is just people and building relationships and connecting with people, serving other people, and just figuring out how I can help people, whether it's in commercial real estate finance or brokerage or any other areas of life, personally or professionally. And so that's kind of how I've built my relationships over time. Originally when I started in the business, it started with online relationship building because I didn't have the money or the time or resources to start to travel. And then as I grew my businesses, I was able to start reinvesting into different masterminds and conferences and different groups. And so that now I just travel around and build relationships nationally, which is super fun.
I actually want to, I didn't plan on starting there, but I want to, because I think you're very, you're very outward. You're very, you're very comfortable speaking in front of people. I know you public speak. I mean, you enjoy the relationship side of things. In my opinion, I think that's part of the reason you're so successful and have such a big database of people that you're connected to. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into, Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, you've been connected all the way around, and we talked a little bit about this on your show. But one thing that's unique about you, Hannah, is you brought me onto your show, right? I'm a general contractor. You had Devin Kennard, who's here local, that we both know. Recently, you've had guests from all different industries. When you speak about relationships, how has that brought you value, being that you're focused on commercial real estate, right? You're focused on investing. You're looking at, how people can place their money, how you're looking at tax savings and to use, tax code that's out there that you're very involved in. How have relationships played a role in that?
I think relationships have been everything. And at first, before I had relationships, it was just the grind. I was wearing every hat. I was doing the operations. I was doing the paperwork. I was doing the relationships, marketing, everything like that. And it was just a very difficult grind because I wasn't operating in my unique gift, my unique genius, my passion. And I think we all go through those phases in our businesses, right? And when we start, we have to do it all. And we're not going to be the best at it all. And we're not going to love all of it. We're going to have to really grind and really work. But I think it's so important. And my mentor taught me this when I started working with him. He said, as you build anything in your life, you want to move closer and closer and closer to the point of your arrow. The point of your arrow is your unique gifts, your unique ability, your passion, your zone of genius, where you feel time goes fast and you feel like the outcomes go exactly as you want, and you feel energized and you feel excited and you feel passionate and all these things. And so I've always kept that in the back of my mind and thought, okay, let me do an energy audit of my day, and anything that I'm doing that takes energy from me, when you just feel exhausted after you do something, let me try to delegate that, remove that, or outsource it somehow so I can get closer and closer to the point of my arrow where I am always doing the thing that puts me in the state of flow, that is that energy, that positive energy, that green, I call it the green zone, where time goes fast and it's just my zone of genius. And I learned that my flow state is when I'm connecting with people. And not anybody, there's people that I connect with that just drain the hell out of me. And I'm like, oh, this isn't my person, right? And that helped me let go of those clients even. Just because it's a client does not mean it's a client that I should be serving. If they're not aligned with who I am and what fuels me and what I believe in, and energetically we're not aligned, I no longer take those clients. And that was a hard decision for me too, because that's actual dollars that you're removing. But I had to shift the mindset and change it from, it's not dollars I'm removing, it's freeing up my time and my energy to do things that are more in line with the integrity of who I am and what I want. And when you're in a state of flow, you're 5 times more productive. 5 times is a huge amount of productivity. So you could technically have 1/5 the amount of clients that are more in line with you energetically and get the same quality results. And so I think relationships and the right relationships have been everything, and just being able to decipher what is the right relationship, because we can all build relationships with anybody. Like, we have resources to find anybody that we could possibly want to find and start to try to build that relationship, but just making sure it's the right relationship. It's the relationship that fuels you and you fuel them. And I think that's everything, because one bad relationship can ruin you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, personally or professionally, it can absolutely destroy you, and it can also completely make you and change the outcome of the trajectory of your entire life. And so I just always know that nothing is more important than the relationships in my life, and I protect those relationships with everything in me.
What's interesting, Hannah, I mean, you speak about, the 5 times more productive, right? If you understand kind of your secret power, if you will, and you mentioned that it's really the point of the arrow that you're trying to achieve. What tipping point happened for you? Because I think many of us, maybe some people are unique where they're like, hey, I know my gifts, I know my talents, like I'm going to go pursue those. But a lot of us have to figure that out over the course of time, right? It's trial and error. It's, as we're working in business, okay, I am good at this. I'm not that good at this, but actually I'm comfortable at this, even though I'm not good at it. But if I like practice and work at it, maybe it's public speaking, for example. I may realize that I actually enjoy that. So over time I could become better. But how do you get to the point for you when you really understood this is my superpower as Hannah, and this is where I'm going to really focus my time?
Yeah, and I think we don't see our superpowers because to us that comes natural.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't think it's a superpower. We just think it's like something everybody has or
Mm-hmm.
something everybody can do. And that was me. I didn't realize my ability to serve others and like build relationships, really strong, deep-rooted relationships where people trusted me, not only with their business or their real estate financing or their real estate purchase or sale. It was told to me by other people, because I started to ask people, what do you think my gift is? And they would tell me, like, your gift is people.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to have that awareness of, that's true. Like, when I'm with the right people and serving the right people and learning from the right people and teaching the right people, I feel the best. I feel better than when I'm alone. I feel better when I'm doing detail-oriented contract work. I feel better than when I'm doing all these different things. And so that was one way I figured it out, is I asked other people who knew me very well, what do you think my gift is? What do I excel at that other people don't just naturally excel at? And then the next thing I did was that time energy audit. And I can't remember if I learned this I know I learned this partially from my energetic intelligence coach, who was my first coach I hired, who taught me all these things. And people think it's goofy, but it's in my opinion, it's the most important thing to master in business and in life is your energy above all else. Any other skill set, marketing funnel, ad campaign, like none of it matters in comparison to protecting your energy and keeping yourself in a peak state. And so when I did the time energy audit, I just tracked, I looked at my calendar every day and I set an alarm every hour, just a quick 30-second check-in of like, what am I doing right now? Who am I with? Is this giving me energy or is this taking energy from me? And then I just tracked, okay, if I'm looking at Excel spreadsheets, it drains me. I could do it. I have done it. I do it a lot. I have 2 engineering degrees.
Yeah.
Like, I'm used to Excel, but it's not something that makes me feel excited to wake up in the morning and go look into Excel. However, I do know people where that is what makes them excited, to wake up in the morning and look through cash flows and pro formas and Excel sheets and models and build them and all those things. And so for that part of my business, I find the person that gets super excited over that, and that's their unique gift, that's their unique ability, that's their tip of the arrow. Like, they would rather jump off a bridge than go do what I do and go be with people all day long and network and work in the actual relationship. So that's what helped me too, is just those different things. Like, for instance, outside of people, I love creating ideas for my business. I love creating ways to improve my business and look at my, zoom out and look at everything from a 1,000-foot view and not be so in the weeds, and then figure out, okay, how can I make this better? What's my edge? How am I different from my competition? How can I serve clients better? And how do we tweak these things? So those types of things, once I had the awareness, I was able to start to understand what was signal, what was noise, and what did I need to delegate or what did I need to remove altogether.
Well, I think what's interesting, Hannah, is, you can obviously tell, like, you're very connected. You have an easy way to communicate with people. You deliver your message very concisely, right? And so relationships come natural to you. But now there's the element, okay, how do I monetize this? And not like in a selfish way, but the reality is, like, you run a business, you have HP Capital, right? And so as you're looking at that, and I know in your bio you say I'm obsessed with KPIs, which is really important to any business valuation, looking through the health of any business. But a lot of people look at commercial real estate as mundane, boring, right? There's a lot of nuance to it. I have a lot of familiarity with commercial real estate, not to your level. But yet you find passion in the industry that some may not. So how have you leveraged that to say, okay, I'm good at relationships. I'm coming into the commercial real estate world. Now, how do I create an operation and a system? I mean, you touched on this a little bit about how you're addicted to creativity, and that's like a passion of yours. And so improving business. But again, you have to now monetize the relationships to figure out, okay, here's my venture. How do I build it? How do I organize it? And how do we capitalize?
Yeah, I just always, and I heard this from Grant Cardone on something that he posted. He said, I am a very transactional person. He goes, if you want anybody in my life that I have a relationship with is somebody that I am doing transactions with. I am doing deals with them. And I thought about that and I was like, I agree in a way. Like, I definitely very intentionally build relationships with people that I know I can do business with them in some way. Like, my whole world pretty much is all commercial real estate people, right? Because that's just my world and that's what I do and that's who I invest my time into, because we share the same passion, we share the same similar knowledge, and we can serve each other both, like, bilaterally. And then I think, okay, is this person that's somebody that I can actually, do I enjoy them as a friend? Do I actually like them as a human? Do I align with their values? Can I serve them better than they're being served elsewhere? And is this going to be something that is fulfilling on multiple avenues? And I think, what is in it for them, not what is in it for me. Of course, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I could do business with this person. They're buying real estate. I could finance their deals. Not only am I going to finance their deals, but I'm going to finance their deals way better, with better terms, better rate, easier process, better technology, better everything than what they're currently getting. So I know that I'm not taking anything. I'm serving them and giving them. And if we don't end up building a relationship or whatever, that's fine. Like, I just interviewed someone on my podcast that, we have financed deals for him, but we don't. Like, he's got such big relationships with the banks directly now. He just doesn't really need us, and that's fine. He still had him on my show, and he's still a friend of ours, and we go out and see him and visit with him because we still share the same passion and commonality. So it's not like I would just dump somebody's relationship because they're not giving me a direct. Right, exactly. But it's still that so that's kind of how I think, is how can I really serve these people that I'm being intentional by? And then once you build strong relations, like Robert Kiyosaki, very good friend of mine, mentor of mine forever, since I was 13 and read his book. And I don't finance his buildings, like, I'm not making money off of Robert, but we have a good time together. I learn a lot from him. He's so wise. He's gotten me into public speaking and, invites me places so I can travel and start to build my reputation. So there's just all these little things, right? And it's a symbiotic relationship. Like, he gets a lot of value out of mentoring me and being around me and talking to me and all these things too. So I guess that's really it. It's just what's in it for them, and not ever going into anything with the mindset of what can I take from this person. And if you just shift that mindset and you truly live by that, you truly serve other people, then I feel like the money just kind of flows, the business starts to flow, because you're really operating in alignment with like real integrity and real service.
It's interesting though, but you mentioned you have engineering degrees, like you have the capability of Excel, but as you look at your life now, what brought you into commercial real estate? Because a lot of people in my experience have, like, grown up in it. They've been associated to some extent. What brought you into the commercial development world?
I just want to play in the big leagues. I just,
but how did you know? How do you know the big leagues? And the reason I say that, because a lot of people don't realize that, yes, playing in the big leagues is commercial real estate.
Yeah, and luxury. Yeah. Luxury is the big leagues too.
But for more commercial real estate, no doubt.
Yeah, they're just bigger. Like, we're working on a $300 million financing deal. That's a big deal. I mean, you're not going to do a $300 million
custom home,
luxury home. So yeah, but it's a volume model over the other. But anyway, I think what got me into Rich Dad Poor Dad got me into real estate in general. That gave me the bug of like, okay, if I invest in assets, I can have financial freedom and I don't need to be a slave to make earned income for my entire life. So that was the first bug. Then I got my license at 18 because I wanted to be a real estate investor. And I started researching on bigger pockets. And bigger pockets is what started to teach me about like what's multifamily, what are these other asset classes. And of course, I'm seeing, okay, these transactions are much bigger. I would like to sell these transactions versus a $400,000 house. And so that's what happened. And then I kind of just fell in at 18 years old. My very first deal was a commercial real estate deal, a $1.1 million commercial property in Phoenix, which is now Moon Valley Nursery. And I was like, well, this is awesome. Like, I really like this. This was, difficult, but exciting, challenging. I learned a lot and I could see how I could actually scale this. And so that's kind of just one thing led to another. I started at a residential brokerage at Keller Williams. I didn't jump right into commercial, but because that first deal happened to be commercial, I wasn't even looking for it. I was holding an open house at a residential property and one person came to the open house and he happened to own this commercial property and he wanted me to sell it. And that's what kind of started it.
Well, what's interesting is there's a lot of avenues to take with commercial real estate, right? You could come in and you can buy dilapidate or like maybe a vacant shopping center. You can get the tenants in there, lease it out, do the TIs, flip it to a national REIT, get a good cap rate. I mean, there's a lot of things you do to capitalize. I mean, you've taken an investment strategy where you're, working as a lender, right? In some cases, for some of these, why the focus in lending and how has that become a focus now of your career?
I'm just an entrepreneur. And so I think of everything I'm doing. I think of like, how do I scale this? Because I know my capacity, if I'm doing the work, like as a commercial, if I was just doing my own loans, I would be maxed to my production and I wouldn't be building a valuation, like a real worth in the enterprise. And I always wanted to build a real company that was really worth something, like a company that a big company would buy. And I didn't have the desire, first off, and I also didn't see the scalability on the commercial real estate brokerage side because the licensing requirements are crazy. You need boots on the ground. You got to go tour buildings and do inspections and do all these different things. Whereas in finance, you just need a phone and a computer and you could be anywhere in the world and you can be originating loans. And so I really liked the ability to scale. And I also just saw a need in the finance space. Commercial real estate finance is very old. It's very just, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, like a dinosaur. It's just an ancient model. They don't have a streamlined system. They don't have advanced technology. They don't have, they haven't brought it to modern standards. And I just saw a place where I could kind of come in and fill that gap much easier than if I were to like try to go scale, to scale a commercial mortgage or a commercial real estate brokerage that's going to compete with CBRE is probably not likely. Now, CBRE is also one of the biggest lending companies as well, but there's a lot of gaps that they kind of miss, and they would actually potentially be someone that would buy my company down the road. So yeah, I guess that's why I decided to do finance, was just the scalability from it.
What did you find the hardest, to break into the industry when you're working on the finance portion of commercial real estate? I would imagine early on, there's a certain amount of volume you can still take on, right? There's lending capacity. Maybe you can speak to that, not exact dollars amount, but maybe how that's grown over time. And again, you're entering a field, even though you see a weakness in that field and you see an opportunity where you can do something unique to a dinosaur industry. Trust me, I understand that analogy perfectly because I'm in construction, right? And it's just that's my industry to a T. But so you see a need, you can fill that need, you have a certain capacity that you can do. How did those relationships build over time? Because you still have to do business development, right? You have to find the end user, those that are going to be like, okay, Hannah, let's do this deal, and start building that relationship with them.
Yeah, so I think when I launched HB Capital, the finance company, it was such an easy, smooth transition that was way easier than I thought it was going to be, transitioning from commercial real estate brokerage, right? Because now I was commercial real estate brokerage just in Arizona, and then we do residential as well, just small boutique one-stop shop brokerage, and then I decided to scale a national lending company for commercial real estate and luxury residential as well, but the commercial product. And Anyway, it was so easy. I think the reason it was so easy is because I started to, over the past year, I invested in establishing my personal brand. And with my personal brand, I didn't just, yes, I was talking about commercial real estate and interviewing real estate people, but other entrepreneurs as well, not real estate related, and just started providing value to more of a mass audience, just like you do, because you've done an amazing job building your personal brand too. And so it was just easy when I transitioned and when I started saying, okay, I'm in finance now. People knew, like, you're already in commercial real estate, you already understand finance, obviously you're new in that world. So the question then was, okay, what's your operational team? How can I trust that you can actually get these deals done? For instance, one of our clients and one of my best friends, he is one of the largest storage facility owners in the country, he has a multi-$100 million fund. He's like, I want to bring you business, but I need to make sure you can actually execute because you don't have 27 years experience
Mm-hmm.
in the finance world, right? And so that's where it came down to, I always go back to who, not how. Like, how is easy. Information is free. Now with ChatGPT, you could figure out anything. You could strategize how to build companies. You can see how big companies have been built or small companies, whatever your goal is. And I needed to find the right team to be able to execute on my promises with HB Capital. So that's what I did. And I found one of the top producing teams in the entire country. They do 600 million a year in loans, over 100 years experience between all of them. Very, very, very deep capital relationships with every single lender type nationwide. And so when I was able to bring them in and create a value to them, why HB Capital is going to be a better company for you to be at than CBRE or Marcus or JLL or any of my competition, and show them that value, then I had the full picture. So I'm like, okay, now I have the relationships. I continue to build relationships. That's a big value that I bring to the company because I'm not originating loans. I'm bringing deals to the company.
Mm-hmm.
And then my operational team, who is way better than me and who has the experience, is actually executing on those and executing on the promises that I'm sharing with our clients. And so that's been a really good opportunity. And now it's just scale. Now it's our capacity is as much as we can add more A plus players to HB Capital, the more loans we can continue to originate. Because I'm out there building relationships nonstop. It's 75% of my time is that, and as those leads come in, I'll continue to feed those to our originators who are going to be able to close those deals. And because we're licensed everywhere we need to be nationwide, to do deals in almost every state across the country, we can recruit talent from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the top talents in New York are the East Coast. And the work from home thing is pretty demanded actually now. People want to work from home. They don't want to come to a building every day. And so I think it's just a nice flexible model to be able to recruit that talent. So we're working with recruiters right now. We hired a couple people over the past couple weeks and just trying to get more of the top talent like I already got, so we can scale at a greater level. Because my goal is to be doing 10 billion a year in originations as soon as possible. Thank you. Yeah, and I know we'll get there. I know it's a big goal, but we'll get there because of the way that I have built the company. Because that was my vision. Like 10 billion a year, I'll have $100 million valuation at that point. I have other verticals that I'm going to bring in along the way to get recurring revenue and get the EBITDA multiple capacity up. And I don't even know if I would ever sell, but I always build with the end in mind. I want to build something that someone would want to buy if I did decide to ever sell.
Well, and we'll come back to that because I think the exit strategy is something that I didn't plan on touching on, but I think it's really important. And the fact that you're already thinking about that shows you're very prepared in how you want to operate your business. And from the sounds of it, I mean, you're working on the business acquisition, right, Hannah, and you're working on lead generation and you have the connections and then of course, you're turning that over for the complex underwriting and data management, right, that everyone's going to do behind the scenes. How does it play a role though in the market, economic slowdowns, right? We've seen commercial up and down. I mean, trust me, I deal with this in residential, interest rate volatility. Like we've all seen that, especially how that can impact commercial a little bit more than residential because you do have end users, triple net, right? There's investment size, the back end of that. How does that play a role just for your firm as you're working with clients? What are they concerned about in the market right now? How are you addressing those concerns?
So, I mean, it's been a tough couple of years in commercial real estate. I know back in 2008, the residential market crashed pretty bad. The past couple of years, the commercial real estate market has had a pretty big crash. I mean, they don't put it big on the news or whatnot, but I've seen lots of assets trading are below 30% below what they were trading for
Right.
prior to the interest rate spikes. Now, we all know there's market cycles, everything like that happens. And so one of the ways that I stay diversified is offering every single product type. Like, do you need a bridge loan for a distressed asset? Because right now there's more opportunity for distressed assets, and these aren't bankable acquisitions. These need private funding, or bridge loans, debt funds, different product types. Now, and so we have those product types to be able to allow investors to take advantage of those opportunities and secure those deals and still fund loans. And then the other thing is diversification amongst asset classes. For instance, Jeffrey, my executive managing director at HB Capital, he has specialized a lot in retail over his 27-year career, and a lot of single-tenant net lease retail. Well, single-tenant net lease buildings, so like your Chick-fil-A, your Starbucks, they're very safe. They're corporate guaranteed leases from massive companies that are never going out of business. Like McDonald's is never going away, right? And so, so when other things slow down, like multifamily slowed down a lot over the past few years, and there was a lot of loan modifications that were getting extended. So even though there was distress, there wasn't a lot transacting, but because we were doing other verticals, other asset classes that were still transacting and were still being developed and being financed and everything, then it's fine. It just shifted. And actually, Jeffrey has said even during some of the major downturns, his business has picked up because of the asset class that he had experience in. So I think just having the diversification of loan products, asset classes, and geography, we could be in every single state. And even though some states may be having a larger pullback, some states or some even cities or even sections of cities are thriving and are actually growing and appreciating, and transactions are up. And so just being able to have that reach really helps make sure that we are protected in every market cycle.
I love that you touched on this, because really the success to any firm is, especially you as the leader of your firm, Hannah, is to be able to look around corners, project what's coming. I mean, none of us have a crystal ball, but ideally you have a good sense of whether the market's trending right and how you can position your company. And you touched on this, how multifamily is looking at nationally, especially retail, how that can play a role. Where are you seeing the best opportunities for growth right now, as we enter the last quarter of, 2025 and through 2026?
Yeah. So ultimately, we still have a housing shortage in the US, and we had a lot of multifamily product delivered at one time, and then all these other things happening in the market, interest rates and over leverage and printing money, all the things, right? And so that perfect storm has created a distressed situation in a lot of areas nationally with multifamily because of that oversupply, the cost of construction, the interest rates, and all that. However, once that eventually gets absorbed, some people are going to lose a lot of money on their deals because they went over cost and all that. But other investors are going to come in, scoop those up at a lower basis, ride it back up, hold on to it longer. And multifamily is still going to be a strong asset class over time. Now there's going to be pain in the interim for those who got caught up in it, amongst other asset classes. But industrial, AI, data centers, like everywhere. That's big. Yeah. And that's going to, for the long future, is going to be a very, very, very big demand. So there's a lot of space there. Storage. Another asset class, like people need storage, especially as affordability continues to become an issue. People are moving into smaller and smaller properties. They need storage units. So that's a good asset class. Retail, especially in Phoenix and all over, a lot of retail wasn't developed since COVID because they thought retail was dead and all these things, right? And now we have a shortage of retail, and retail actually has the lowest vacancy rates across all asset classes nationwide, 4.5%. So I think it's just office is huge distress, which lies huge opportunity if you have the appetite for the risk. Office is still strong if it's a class A or double A office building with all the new amenities. Like people want a nice place to work. People don't want to work in grungy, dark, crappy offices anymore. And so, but with those offices, there's a lot of distress. There's opportunities to buy them at land value, redevelop them. So I just always think like in every time there's a lot of pain lies the most opportunity. And so I actually was super excited to launch my company. I launched it a year ago, last June, HB Capital. I was excited to launch it in a down economy because I know if I can build during a time that's very hard, I will actually be confident in myself to be successful through everything. Because a lot of people, they get into real estate or construction or development, or they get into something late to the party where everything's been good for a while and they're like, oh, everything's going really well. People are making a lot of money. Let me jump into this. And then they think that they're good at it because they're just riding the market up and you really can't fail. And then, something like this happens, interest rates spike, construction costs go up, tariffs get implemented, whatever, all these things. And they fail very quickly because they weren't actually good. They never actually learned the things that they needed to learn to sustain in really, really tough times. And I think real pros survive no matter what. And I was so excited to start in a down market, weed out more competition, really understand my craft and understand what it's really going to take, so I can ride the wave back up for the next decade. And then just know that I am equipped to sustain any down cycle that may come.
So you mentioned, you started a year ago. And I don't really know many business owners that start within a year and have a good exit strategy, or at least where the company's going. Again, you mentioned you've had some great mentors, which we can touch on that here in a minute. How did you have a good understanding of exit strategy and plan for that already this young in your career?
Well, I love the game of business and I want to build $1 billion company. It's always been, not always, but building something great and expansive and something so far beyond what I could ever think I was capable of creating has always been something that has been my plan, because I want to reach my highest potential. I want to live up to my highest potential. I want to help other people do the same. And I want to really push myself. And my mentor, Garnett, one of my mentors, he told me that your dreams should be so big that they should make you sick. Like literally sick to your stomach, even thinking about them. And I always push myself. And every time I hit a goal, my next goal had to make me feel sick to my stomach. And then I put it out there. I go on podcasts. I'm like, I'm going to be a billionaire. I am going to be a billionaire. And if I don't, it's not a big deal. I'm not tied to the outcome. It's just, it's the game. I love the game. I love to grow. I love to push myself. I know the more I was given a gift of creating. I'm a visionary. I'm very good at creating and I love to create. And through that creation, I can create things for other people and service for other people. Like the more recurring cash flow I can create, the more I can give back in philanthropy, the more I can teach other people how to build their own businesses and how to help themselves heal emotionally and how to have the best relationships in their life and all these things that I'm very passionate about behind it all. But yeah, I guess that was it. I just want to begin with the end in mind, because I think if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you nowhere. And I don't want to go nowhere. I want to have a map and know exactly where I'm going. And I just think it's fun. I think it'll be fun to create. And I can see, I wanted a company that I could actually see exactly how and what I would need to do to get it to the size that I wanted to get it, and to get it to be something that would be viable, or rather sellable, to somebody else. And I could see that pretty easily in finance. Now, nothing's easy. It's going to be hard, but I could see the vision easily and very clearly. Yeah. Where I couldn't see that in brokerage. To build a national real estate, it just is not likely. And it wasn't something I was excited about.
Yeah. And that's a key. That's a key. I mean, yeah, it's not likely. I mean, that's a very difficult task, but if you're not excited about it, and you can tell you're excited about, what you're doing now. Mentors is really important. I had a great business mentor early on that really helped me, especially, he was incredible because he understand, as you mentioned, business and EBITDA and, how to read a balance sheet, and really people was his strong suit. So he really knew how to identify value in people. And he could see, there's this saying all the time, the right people on the bus, but in the wrong seat. And he could identify quickly if someone's in the wrong seat. And he kind of helped me do that early in my career. How did you find your business mentors? Because I think a lot of young entrepreneurs really struggle. They come in, they see these really successful people, but look, they're successful for a reason. They don't have time to just mentor 100 people, right? Sometimes you can find continuing education and other things, but you've been very fortunate in a way to, I'm sure a lot of it's your drive. You're not, speak to this success or secret to your success, to finding mentors that have had a big impact on you that have led you to where you are today.
It transitioned over time. In the beginning, my mentors was books and YouTube University. And you can learn so much. And now with ChatGPT and YouTube, like all these things, you can learn so much. I mean, because I know Bedros Cooley, I know a bunch of like business coaches out there that charge people. Like I think Bedros charges, I know because I almost worked with him, but I think he charges like $150,000 for 1 year of mentorship, and it's only 4 meetings.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And those 4 meetings I think are like 4 hours each, and you go out there for a half day or whatever, and he's able to charge that. However, he also teaches a lot of what he teaches with you for free online on YouTube and all those things. The thing is, people don't act on things that are free.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a personal choice. So if you actually take the information that real professionals are putting out there online, now you have to be cautious because a lot of people are just coaches and they're not actually doing anything. And you don't want to, you got to be like the worst. Sometimes the worst thing for you is taking someone's advice if it's the wrong person, right? Because you could take bad advice and you could screw a lot of things up in your life. But if you find real people that are real professionals that are really doing what you want to do and you want to take advice from them, I always say I only take advice from someone that I would trade places with in that area that I'm taking their advice. So if I'm looking for advice on how to build a luxury home, I'm going to you, Brad. But if I'm looking for advice on, how to flip a mobile home park, I'm probably not going to go to you for that advice because it's not your area of expertise. Right. I would go to, Jeremiah, who's a big mobile home park guy. Right. And same thing in health. Like if I wanted to get healthy and fit, I'm not going to take advice from someone that's really good at business, but they're not healthy and not fit. I would take advice from someone that's really healthy and fit in that area. So I think that was the big thing. Now, once I was able to make money and I could afford to reinvest in myself, then I took that money and I started to seek out mentors and actually pay them as a mentor. So that like my first coach I hired, his name was William Poet. He's the one that taught me all about energetic intelligence and being in a state of flow and the importance of being in the green zone and living life in the green zone 90% of the time. So when I hired it, he was $10,000 for whatever, eight sessions or something, which I was 25 years old. And that, even now, that's a lot of money. And so, but I needed to invest that money. And he was referred to me by a friend of mine who I really respected, who was already working with him and said, you got to work with this guy. It's going to be amazing for you. And so I got that referral and I chose to finally invest in myself, which I was hesitant to do for so long because I always thought, like, 10,000 for a coach, is it really going to help? That's a lot of money. I could invest that in marketing. I should just go do this over here. And so that's the advice I have, is invest in yourself above all else, because I have never invested into a mastermind. And that's what I started doing next. I started investing in masterminds. You just got to pay to play sometimes. And then once I got into masterminds, that's actually how I met Robert Kiyosaki, because one of the guys that owns the mastermind, one of the masterminds I'm in called Genius Network, he has been friends with Robert for 30 years or 25 years or something. And he saw me on social media and saw that I always posted videos about rich dad principles, assets versus liabilities, mind your own business, all these different things. And he introduced me to Robert. And then also through that mastermind, I met one of my current mentors, Garnett, who built and sold the biggest life insurance company in the entire country of Canada. And so just these different things. But I would just say, like, if someone's just getting started, use free resources online and don't treat them like they're free. Like, actually prioritize your learning. Block an hour or 90 minutes a day in your calendar every single day to learn. Like, read books, listen to audiobooks, watch YouTube, like study people and businesses that are doing what you want to do and start there. And then as soon as you have the money, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, that's kind of the minimum cost to join a mastermind or to hire a mentor. Once you have that money, invest it in yourself and get in those rooms. And then one relationship will lead to the next and to the next. And then now mentors just kind of find me. Like, I don't really seek them out. They find me. And if we resonate and they're doing what I want to be doing in some area of my life, then I work with them.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny how that changes. I mean, we have this mindset out of high school that, you're kind of indoctrinated in a way to go to college, right? You got to spend all this money, take on all this debt. If you look at it in your professional career, and let's say you bypass college or it was an option, but in your career, you have to do the same thing. Like, you have to invest in yourself, whether it's, to your point, whether it be mentors or, entrepreneurship groups. And, we host some summits as well for the construction industry to help people kind of advance their career and say, look, we've made all these mistakes in our career. Let's not have you make those. And here's a better way to set, provide value to your client and set you up for success and understand how to price, competitively in your market. But I think you said something pretty profound. You're like, people don't act on things that are free. And to your point, there's so much information. TikTok, I think there's a lot of value on TikTok, right? You see it in ChatGPT and other forums and YouTube. You mentioned early on, Hannah, you said the time energy audit. And I think that's really important because you have really shown a priority that, hey, at certain points of your life, you made part of YouTube, reading books, other things, and use that time, energy to figure out how to advance your career to where you could actually afford to get to these networking groups. And then from there, you're capitalizing. You're essentially the doors squeaking open, you're kicking it down, and you're meeting some big mentors. And so, as you've got into these groups, where have you found success? Because a lot of times, as I've attended summits, yes, the information's great from those that are speaking, and maybe in some cases, you have the unique ability to get to know the speaker or the host of the group. But a lot of times, you find value in the attendees. Networking with them and building with them. How has that relationship played from either those attending or those that are speaking and pushing you to where you are today?
So I always make it an intention to meet all the speakers. And so after they talk, I go right up to them. Thank you so much for the value. I reiterate what I learned from them, and then I start building a relationship with them. So I'm always just thinking, like, who are the players in the room that I should be talking to? And then as far as the attendees, I get tons of value, and I kind of identify who are the speakers. I immediately go on, follow them on Instagram, add them on Facebook, connect with them on LinkedIn.
Yes,
Like, I'm very intentional.
right.
And I'm not always even like fully listening. If it's not something that super resonates with me or something I specifically want to learn about, I'm intentional about that time, and I'll use that time to find them. And that's exactly how I met Jeremiah, who's one of my greatest friends and one of our big clients now. He was speaking at an event, and I went right up to him and told him it was great and what I learned, and asked for his advice on my new company that I was starting. And we became very close, and I think we have $100 million of loans with them in the pipeline. And so those types of relationships are very key. I'm very intentional of who's in the room, who should I be talking to, who do I resonate with, and then always attend it. Like, a lot of people go to these conferences and they get so burnt out listening to the speakers that they don't have any energy left over for the networking or the dinner, and they call it an early night, and they don't build those relationships. But those relationships are everything. Like, if anything, ditch the conference and just go to the networking things. And I actually do that a lot because I go to so many. Sometimes I'm so burnt out, I feel like I want to die, even though it's my favorite thing ever. But I'm nonstop. And so sometimes I'll just not go to the speaking part, and I'll make sure to go to the lunch, go to the networking, go to the dinner, and just go into any of the breaks, so I can just really be intentional about building those relationships. And that's worked really well for me. And it allows me to really build the relationships and identify who I like.
I think it's a great strategy. I mean, there's no doubt that, the conversation at the dinner table goes a lot further than, sitting in a boardroom at times.
Yeah. And it's just like, you got to have fun with people. And and this is my gift. Like, one of my best friends I was just talking about, he's an introvert. Like, he does not like doing any of that. He likes being in the weeds of his business, working in his business, grinding in his business. And so it's exhausting for him to go to the dinner or go to the lunches or go to the networking things. And he'll do it, and he'll kind of push through. But I think if you don't have someone in your company who that is their gift, and you can send them, which is what I would say first off, if you have that person that's really good at that and who knows how to work a room, send them if it drains you, because you want to move closer to your arrow. But if you're at a position where you have to play that role, just save your energy for the things that really matter. And sometimes going to the bar and drinking with the group is the thing that really matters. That's actually going to move the needle versus sitting in the seminar for 18 hours, for 5 days. So that's just something I would say is, like, if it's not your zone of genius and it does drain you, save your energy, because it is so important and you have to do it.
What's interesting, this goes back a little bit earlier in the conversation, is you had made a comment early on that for you, it was never about chasing money. It was, you wanted to chase things that were, that spoke to you, and where you wanted to put your time and energy. And what I found is a lot of successful people, they realize that, money is off to the side. Like, if I can build a successful enterprise, if I can sell it at 10X, right, they can see the end game. And they realize, like, I had a mentor always tell me, Brad, generosity precedes prosperity. He's like, the money will come. Like, be generous with your time, be generous with your efforts, be generous with your kindness. And, and you enlist a lot of that you're pursuing relationships, you're pursuing, all these different ventures. And not that you're not successful today, because you are, but you're not getting lost in how much did I make this year? How much am I making today? Like, for you, it's an angle that will come. You have to build to that point. Is that natural to you? Is that something you learned from mentors that you had followed? Like, because not many people have that gift.
In the beginning, it started with money. Like, because I was raised in a family that didn't have any. And so I was desperate for money because I wanted to
Yeah.
survive. I was like, I got to take care of myself.
Right.
Nobody's going to take care of me. And so it started with that. But then when I realized that the money was so unfulfilling, like once my basic needs were met and I felt safe, that felt amazing and that changed my life. But beyond that, an extra million in the bank account or 100,000 or 50, it doesn't really make a difference. Like, sure, you go to some nicer dinners or you fly first class or you take a couple extra trips or whatever, but it doesn't change your real happiness, like really deep down inside of you. You can't buy your way out of pain. And when I learned that, I started to shift because I was running construction companies, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But I had 3 construction companies and I was so miserable. It was not my gift. I had no place
Yeah.
being
I
in
can tell you
construction.
it's not the funnest career gig. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no place being there. And I was just doing it because the wealthiest person I knew in my childhood had construction companies. And I was like, okay, that's what I got to do. It's just what I'm going to do. But when I had the awareness of, I have these companies, I invested a lot of time into them, I invested a lot of money into them, I have them built, and it would be so painful to walk away. But my happiness is way more important, and I've already learned by this point that more money is not going to fix this pain I have inside. And there was more than just the construction companies. I had a lot of internal things that I had to work through, and I did work through all those over time. But that's what shifted for me. And I was like, okay, when I hired that energetic intelligence coach, I'm like, what makes me excited? Like, I think play is such an underrated importance to life. And I was just watching Jordan Peterson's interview on the Joe Rogan show last night before, to fall asleep. And he was talking about that. He said the opposite of tyranny isn't freedom, it's play. Because play is something that you have to voluntarily do. Like, you can't be forced to play. You have to choose, like, okay, I'm going to play. I'm going to have fun. And so now I think everything in my life, I see it as play. Like, I know I'm playing a high stakes game. I know there's a lot of pressure. I know I have payroll. I know I have commitments that I have to keep my promises on. I know I have clients to serve that are relying on me, and they could lose a lot of money if we don't execute, right? And they're like, it's a high stakes game, but I can still play while I play the game. I can still have fun. I can still be light. I can still be loose. I can still be have laughter and enjoy the things that I'm doing every day. Like, we have been taught as a society that if there's no pain, there's no gain. And yes, there is a level of pain we all have to go through, like building a muscle. Going to the gym is painful in the way that it strains your body, but it's not really painful. It feels freaking amazing. Like, you don't leave the gym and feel bad. And so that's what I think of as beyond the initial hit of a dopamine hit or a painful hit initially, is, do I wake up tomorrow and feel excited or good about the thing that I did yesterday, right? Like going to the gym, I wake up tomorrow and I feel good that I did that. And same thing in business. Like, I'm going to go through challenging times in my business. I know that. I embrace all of it, and I just no longer resist that sort of pain. But you can go through pain and not have to go through suffering associated with it. Like, you don't have to see pain as suffering. Like, I know every day there's going to be some fire, probably 15 fires at least, that I have to put out in my business, but I embrace it so much, it just doesn't bother me. Like, I don't care if I lose a deal or if I lose money or if I get sued, which I never have. I've had to sue though, but anything like that, it just doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't keep me up at night. It doesn't phase me. I'm like, I started with nothing. You could take it all from me tomorrow. And I love the game so much, I will build it back in a year or 10 years or 50 years. It doesn't really matter to me. I just love the game. And so when you lose that attachment, that's why they say in sales, like, people have commission breath. Like, you can feel their need for the money. Like, they want the deal so bad. And when you lose that attachment to the outcome, everything gets better because you're just playing the game because you love the game and you're getting better at the game and you're obsessed with mastering the game, and the money just kind of comes. And I have to have someone to manage my finances because I really don't care. I don't really look at my bank account that often, or all the different bank accounts. So I have someone that's their gift. They like the numbers, they like the finances, and then they keep me on track with, okay, here's your budget, here's where you're at, money's still good, here's our projections and all that stuff. But I just don't play for the money.
Yeah, and if you don't play for the money, they don't have power over you. So it shows, the happiness you have. Why start a podcast?
Well, I love people. Yeah, I love people. I love learning from people. And some of the relationships I built on the podcast have been so profound in what what I've learned from them in all different areas, not just real estate, what I've learned from them, what I've been able to share with them and help them with, and then what I've been able to contribute back to the world. And so my greater mission in everything is to help others reach their highest potential in life. And I want to be an inspiration as I share my journey that I will be on for the rest of my life as I continue to grow and become a better person, become a better leader, become a better business owner, become a better philanthropist, become a better friend, partner, spouse, like all the everything. I want to help people do the same because I think all we really have is each other in this world. Like relationships, I think are everything. And the relationship with ourselves and the relationship with those around us. And so it just, the ability to learn from others, teach others, and then share that with the world is something that's super exciting to me.
I love that. I love that. I mean, it is amazing how, for me, I've been doing the podcast for 6 years, and, I think selfishly, I didn't understand, probably as you alluded to, that, there's an element of giving back of, we enjoy talking to people. We enjoy the relationships. Both you and I are definitely aligned in that. But selfishly, you don't realize that, hey, I'm sitting down with Hannah for an hour, or any entrepreneur that's very successful. And throughout the conversation, there's all these little tidbits you're giving. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's really smart. I'm going to apply that. And, and there's the value of, you and I, where we really align is seeing how people in other industries, how they operate, and how they speak and how they perform and how they've run their business and how they've created success. Because I think businesses overlap. And the more we can understand business, the better success we can have as we implement those practices in our own.
Yeah, I think it's amazing because if you only and that's something I'm intentional about, is I don't just join masterminds that are real estate masterminds. Right. In fact, I just joined my first 2 masterminds that are specifically real estate. And one of them is commercial specific and one of them is both residential and commercial. But the other masterminds I joined, I'm in a tech mastermind because I want to learn from tech entrepreneurs how they systematize, automate, and scale their companies and get 14x EBITDA multiples on their businesses. I like to learn those because we can take those ideas, just like you said, and implement them in our business. And you just pick up these little things and you make things better. And if you're only around people that are only in your business, they're learning from people that are only in your business, and they're not going to have as creative as ideas to make it better.
So what do you do for fun?
This. Yeah.
I know you're quite busy. I know,
travel, podcast, workout. I'm an adamant workout. I like to go be in nature. I like to explore new places in the world. But I'm really dialed in and focused. And the people, like my friends in my life, are also people I do business with. So it kind of overlaps a lot. But I really, truly have fun all day, every day. Like I'm playing right now and I'm having a great time.
Well, I love that. Before I let you go, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, I love that question. I asked that one too. Just playing too small, like not being the best that I could possibly be. I don't want to ever live a mediocre life, and I don't ever want to let down the person that I know I could have been. I don't ever want to be on my grave and wonder what I could have been. And that's what I live for. And I want to help other people do that too. I know I can impact lives and help people. And I want to be able to do that as large of a scale as I possibly can. But I know it's just like one person at a time.
Well, Hannah, you've been incredible. I appreciate you coming on. I know how busy you are and making time for our audience. So where can our listeners find you?
Instagram at Hannah B. Hammond. If you message me, I will respond, and then you'll see the link there to all my YouTube channel, my other social medias.
Well, amazing. Hannah, thanks for joining.
Of course. Thanks so much, Brad.